Hello. Right, this is the first in a self-aggrandizing series of YouTube videos that I'm going to make, which is looking at my academic publishing journey, specifically looking at the academic articles that I publish. And the excuse for this, to go on about myself and big up my own ego, which is very social media style, so that's fair enough. I shouldn't be self-conscious of this. It seems false self-consciousness to begin the video all about myself by saying, oh, I'm self-deprecating, but I'm British, so that's what we do. It's 2021 and it's 10 years since I brought out my first academic article, which is on screen here. I've just been rereading it and cringing slightly. And this is from 2011, and it is Displacement of Youth from the Isle of Man, the Role of House Price Inflation, and it's been published in Island Studies Journal. Now, rather than the articles themselves, I want to talk about, the academic journey, practical steps in terms of how these articles got published, why I published them, my motivation, perhaps where I'm hoping that it's leading me, and maybe share a few insights into that. Because as academics, our job is to come up with and share ideas. We do that in the classroom and we do it through publications. So it might be things like textbooks, book chapters, media comments, but in particular, especially in business schools, which is what I work in, it has to be through academic journals. And so journals, they accept basically essays of around about 5,000 to 10,000 words. And in those essays, you propose an idea, you test the idea, you share the idea, and you hope to contribute to your academic discipline. Now, this particular article, I wrote it during my master's and, at the start of my PhD, so 10 years ago. Not a particularly good article, I have to say. The journal that it's in is not a prestigious journal at all. It is an open access, online only journal. So, that means that it has not necessarily got a very strong, rigorous review process. Although the editor was really helpful, I did have reviewers that gave me a lot of comments. The editor, really helped me to improve my academic writing, which at the time was, completely half-baked. They put loads of time and effort in, which I really appreciate, and they helped me to produce the final article that was published online. Less prestigious journals, they don't tend to be as widely read. They don't tend to be cited as much by other academics. They're much less, sort of given the time of day. And that's understandable. Some journals are better than other journals, and I think that is undeniable. However, that's not to say that all journals don't have a place. So Island Studies Journal, at the time when I was doing my master's, was really important to me. I'd stumbled across it. I was researching small islands specifically. And of course, Island Studies Journal, therefore, is perfect, and it comes up when you search through Google Scholar, through Summon, ProQuest, Scopus, those other types of databases. And there was really interesting, inspiring research I found in this journal. It was people who were talking in a way which was, perhaps quite easy for me to understand. Maybe that's the advantage of these less prestigious journals. They're not quite as heavy with theory. They don't always use big words and big concepts. And that actually, when you're a research student, is perfect. That's what you're looking for. And so I read these articles. I felt that I could understand them. I felt engaged. I felt inspired. And so Island Studies Journal really did help me when I was doing my master's and when I was starting to do my PhD, to feel like, this is what I can do as an academic. I can engage with these conversations. I can become part of these conversations, and I can go out there and I can learn about islands and I can talk about islands and share my ideas and insights. So that's what I did. I was very naive. I didn't really know anything about academic publishing at the time. I just wrote an article that I thought was interesting based on my master's. I submitted it, and eventually it got published. It did go through review, and the editor, like I said, was very helpful. Now, I didn't know what I was doing, but I think the thing that I've learned from my academic journey, particularly the early stages, such as this first paper, is that a bit of naivety can actually be quite useful. If you just put yourself out there, and if you just give things a go, I think often, you learn from that. I mean, even if you look like, if you make an embarrassing failure of yourself, there's no reason to be embarrassed, because who knows? It doesn't matter, does it? It's just anonymous reviewers and it's different editors, and you might never come across these people in real life ever. So don't be embarrassed. Put yourself out there, give things a go, and naivety can work to your advantage. Worst comes to the worst, you get rejected, and you learn from that rejection. Perhaps, I need to improve this. Maybe you get some constructive criticism, some feedback, which is useful to improve. And actually, as with this case, not a great article, not a prestigious journal, but it eventually got published, and I learned loads from doing that. I felt really fired up, really inspired. I was proud of myself at the time that I'd got an article published. I thought it was great that I was in Ireland Studies Journal along with these people that I was recognising their names and I was enjoying following them and reading the rest of their work. It was kind of a gateway into my wider academic journey. And so maybe that's the thing to do. If you're just starting out, don't poo-poo, don't turn your nose down at less well-respected journals. They might be interesting, they might be very appropriate for where you are. And don't feel too self-conscious. Don't feel like, you can't go out there and submit some work and see what happens. I think if you believe in your idea, if you're enthusiastic, if you've done a good effort at putting it all together, send it off and see what happens. You can send it off to a journal. You might get feedback from an editor. You hopefully get feedback from reviewers. And eventually, who knows, it might even get published. So that's the first tip from my first article, is be a bit naive, use naivety to your advantage, get out there and see what happens.